Okay, so you guys, we just talked about price and how price is an indicator. It's a signal to people as to whether they should purchase or whether they should walk away. It's also an indicator to suppliers, to producers, whether they should produce or whether they should say, it's just not worth it. And so now I want us to spend a few minutes talking about types of competitive markets. Okay, so when you talk about competitive markets, when you start to open a business, you need to think about how much competition do I have in this market that I'm looking to enter. Let's say that you want to open a car lot. Well, how many car lots are already available in our town? How much competition are you going to have? Is there really a space left for you to enter that competitive market? And will you be able to enter the market? Are there any barriers to keep you from it? Economics basically divides our competitive markets up into 4 categories. Monopoly, which should be familiar to you. Then oligopoly, which is a friend of monopoly. Then we have perfect competition and monopolistic competition, which work together. So let's talk about each of these 4 for just a minute. I've already created this on the board. It's just a rough copy, but it's something for you to look back at. In a monopoly, much like the game Monopoly, your goal is to own all of the boardwalk. All right, in a real monopoly in real life, your goal is to corner the market and control all of it so that you have literally no competition. So it's one business. There's one business that you actually have, and there's no competition, nor do you want any competition. Because as an owner of a monopoly, you are the price maker. Now think about why you're the price maker. You get to make the price because there's no one to compete against you, so you can set the price however high you want it because we really have no other options. Now that will depend on how elastic your product is. If your product is something I can walk away from and say, well, forget you, I don't need that, well then that does play a little bit with your pricing. But if you have something that everybody needs and you're the only person that can provide it, then you've got a monopoly with an inelastic product, and you're leading me around, pulling me around because I have to have what you offer. So you're the price maker. This is almost impossible entry. A good example of a monopoly is in a town near us. Pretty much one family owns all the gas stations in the town. Even though the gas stations have different names, they're all owned by the same group of people. And so recently in that town, a newcomer tried to enter the market. Had a hard time getting in there. The opening day, the newcomer came in and tried to drop the price a little bit so that people would come to their gas station. As a result, the other gas stations in town that were owned by that one family entered a price war with them called a gas war. And what they actually did was lower and lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. And when you think about it, it got down to less than $2 a gallon when gas was actually $3.35 at that time. Well, you think about who that hurt. It hurt both of them. But the group that owned the monopoly that had been there forever had money to burn, and they could afford to do it. For the newcomer that's struggling to open a new business, it's hard to get into a monopoly. Beside a monopoly is an oligopoly. Now, if you think about this, it's a little bigger than a monopoly. You actually do have some competition. It's usually small numbers. Different economists argue, well, some say 2, some say 2 to 6, some say 2 to 10, some say 2 to 4. I put 2 to 10 to be a little generous. Difficult to get in, not impossible, but difficult. Examples, cell phone carriers. I want you to think about the different cell phone carriers that we have available. There's only about 5 or 6 of them, and they're very aware of what each other's products are and what each other offers. Airlines. There's only a few airlines that you can fly, particularly those that go internationally and nationally. We have some regional airlines, but the international national ones are very few in number, and they're very aware of each other's prices and each other's freebies that are offered, the deals that are run, because they're very aware of each other. Sodas. Basically, you have Coke and Pepsi, because whether it's Sprite or 7-Up and Sprite, or whether it's Dr. Pepper and Mr. Pibb, or Mountain Dew and Mellow Yellow, they're all owned by the same 2 companies, which are Coke and Pepsi. They are very aware of each other. And as a result, it's not a monopoly, but it's an oligopoly, and they can work very similarly to that. Let's go to the other end. Pure perfect competition, or what more economists call perfect competition. In perfect competition, it's the polar opposite of a monopoly. Unlimited. Anybody can come in. It's completely open to anyone that wants to come in. There are no barriers to entry. You want to produce the product, produce it. Nobody's going to fight you. As a result of that, these people are called the price takers because their products are almost identical. A good example would be agricultural products where you have corn is corn is corn. Or you have soybeans, soybeans, soybeans. Now granted, there may be different varieties of those products, but it's still the basic concept. And so as a result, these people have so many competitors, they have to take what the buyers are willing to give them for their product. And sometimes they have a good market, like right now corn is $8 a bushel because there's a shortage of it, but I also remember when corn was less than $2 a bushel. And so when you look at those, these are the price takers and they have to take what they can get. Farm products are a good example of that. Well, you move one end from that perfect competition and you have monopolistic competition. This is 10 to 20 businesses. It's a large number. Fairly easy to enter. If you want to open a store and sell this product, you can. You might get a little flack, but not too much. This group depends on branding because there's so many of them. And so in branding, think about fast food. If I say Burger King, you think Whopper. If I say McDonald's, you think Big Mac. If I say Dairy Queen, you think Flamethrower. They like to brand their different products, and because that lends themselves to creating some demand in advertising for their particular product. Same thing in clothing. And somebody has suggested sporting goods here. This really could be a balance between oligopoly and monopolistic competition. But think about clothing, just in what you like to wear. There's all kinds of brands of clothes. Notice what I said, brands of clothes. A t-shirt is a t-shirt is a t-shirt. But yet you're very interested in what kinds of t-shirts you wear, what logos across the chest, or what little symbol, insignia is up here. So you're very aware of branding. That's how that group has to work because there's so many competitors. They have to single out and get themselves known somehow. So that's how that comes together. So let's review real quickly. Competitive markets, there's 4 of them. On one end is a monopoly, the price makers, they have no competition, it's almost impossible to get in, and they have only one business. On the opposite end is pure perfect competition, where unlimited competition, there's no barriers to entry, and there's really identical products, there's no way to compare, and they're the price takers. You take what you get. In between, the way I remember where these two go, opoly, opoly, monopoly, oligopoly. Almost a monopoly, it's small, and they're very aware of each other's pricing. Competition, competition, these two go together. It's bigger, it's easier to enter, and they depend on branding. Maybe that makes sense.